What is up, everybody? In my winter riding videos, I constantly get asked two questions, and it's about my studded tires and about my pogies, aka bar mitts. And like everything in like cycling or the internet world, people seem to sit on these like complete black and white opinions of both. They're the godsend, they make everything possible, or they're totally worthless, and why would anyone ever buy either of them? As everything with me, I think the truth is way more nuanced than that, and neither are perfect for every condition, and neither are completely not worth it. I think they're both worth owning, but it doesn't mean they will save every single thing about winter riding. So in 2017 or the winter of 2018, I can't remember exactly, I went out to do a winter overnighter with my friends. It was the first time I was ever going to do any kind of camping in the winter. And we started riding, and at first things are going okay, but I'm getting a little nervous in the neighborhoods. And then we get down to the towpath, and I literally just couldn't keep the bike upright. And it's my old Trek, the same bike that I ride for the winter now. And I'm just like kind of all over the place. And once we got downtown Akron, I'm like, I'm not going to make this. I think we had 25, 30 miles to go still. And so I pulled off. I went over to a restaurant and got lunch and a beer, and I felt completely defeated. And I was like, so much for riding in the snow. You know, I'll ride in the winter when it's cold, but snow, I can't do it. So I was telling this to Otis from Dirty River, the owner, and he was like, studded tires. That's what you need, is studded tires. I look at the price and I'm like, oh man, more money. I was especially cheaper with cycling stuff back then, but I bought 45 North Gravdals, kind of their commuting style tire. They kind of advertise them as more for being a little bit for ice. So I mounted the Gravdals, and then I went on their Yeti ride the next Sunday morning, and we were riding around, and I just felt so confident I could keep the bike upright in those specific conditions. We went down to a part in the park where they used to have an ice skating rink, and so that was ice with some snow on top of it, and I'm riding on that, and I'm like, okay, yes, these are a game changer for me. So my first time out was definitely a best case scenario, but you know how you heard that thing a million times in your life that Eskimos have 50 or 100 or whatever different words for snow? I think that is very, very true, and it really applies to riding bikes in the winter, that conditions are always really different. And the footage I'm showing during this video, I really hit almost every kind of snowy condition you can. And that's just the thing living somewhere like Northeast Ohio, where our winters don't stay all cold and snowy, and they don't stay all warm and rainy. So the conditions are always a mix. Where they get to on the plows is different every time. So it just really depends on the conditions. And when people really want a simple answer, like, do studded tires work for everything, or do they work for nothing? It really depends. So when you watch the footage, you can see how in certain spots I will be picking my lines. It'll be like, do I get more traction in the fresh snow, or am I better off where people have already been walking and driving? What I do is I really just test out the conditions. I try it in each spot. One of the great things to do in winter, no matter what you're riding, is I always grab a rear brake and just see what it feels like. Am I gonna just keep skidding, or is it gonna slow me down? Is it gonna slide a little bit? That is a test I almost always do with winter riding. The other thing is, it takes a while. I call it getting your sea legs back, I guess your snow legs. When I go out at the beginning of winter, I'm very cautious, even on stuff that I'm probably gonna be fine on. If we have a snowy winter, by the end, there's conditions where I've like got it in my head and I know what I could do, and then it could be more, I will be bombing a hill even though there's a little bit snow on it, where yeah, the first few times out, I'm just definitely very cautious. That's one of the things people have asked a lot, like, oh, with the studded tires, is it just full send? Almost never for me. I'm going to be more cautious. It's just like driving. You're driving on a snowy day, you're gonna drive a little slower, hopefully, you know, when it's piling up. So it really depends. And then going around a corner, you're gonna try and get a feel for it. And if the conditions stay that way, you'll be like, okay, I gotta be careful on the corners, or hey, I don't. So really the main thing to me of having the Gravdals on my Trek is just peace of mind. You know, it's dark this time of year, so if I'm going out in the evening, and I think the conditions are gonna be okay, but I do hit some ice, especially black ice that you can't really tell, they're just great. And they really are good on ice, and that's what I think they're mainly designed for, as I hinted at. But it's kind of like when there might be some snow, you're not sure what's underneath it, but it's not super deep, so you're kind of punching through and you're feeling those steel studs grip the road. That's kind of what they do best for. I've made the analogy a number of times when it comes to a lot of snow. It's kind of like gravel riding, where, you know, Jan Hein from Naers would say, you might as well run slicks if it's really dry, because it's not your tires that are slipping on gravel, it's gravel that's slipping on gravel. So the same thing applies to a lot of snowy conditions. It almost doesn't matter what you're riding sometimes, because if there's a lot of snow, especially if it got packed, so like a bunch of cars have been over it before the plows got there, I just find that certain kind of snow will just slip on snow. I'm just not gonna get a lot of benefit out of the studded tires in that situation. I really do enjoy them when they're punching through like a slushy surface this, and I could tell they're contacting. Then also just obviously it's an aggressive rubber tread as well. So even if they're not doing exactly what they're designed for, which is, you know, kind of hitting some of the icier stuff on a commute, they are still more aggressive tires that are going to give me a better shot at traction in a lot of conditions than a regular bike tire would. I was just looking at the 45 North website, and the Gravdels seem to come in around 50 bucks now. Then it goes up to like 70 or 80 for some of the other ones. I think it's their Wrathchild, which is they sell as more of their snow tire. So I think there's a little more space between the rubber treads, and that's when maybe if you live somewhere where the snow is always on the ground or there's groomed trails that don't require you to have a certain fat bike or anything like that. It really depends on where you live, and that's the other thing. There's just no one answer. But again, that's why I keep saying for me, it's just that peace of mind of having something. Because in the winter, I'm not going super far, I'm not going super fast. The goal is to get out the door. So it's this beautiful snowy day and I want to go ride my bike. I'd rather ride on them. I always say this too, you're riding in the snow, 10 miles feels like 20 and it could feel even worse. I say, think about whatever distance you're doing and in your head be like, if this was summer, this is gonna feel like twice that distance. So also, you know, as someone who loves super supple, pretty expensive tires, people ask about the ride quality and it's like, well, it just doesn't matter because I'm going to be riding on snow and out there. But also on top of it, they don't feel as bad as you think they would. And again, that's what the ones I'm using where the studs do push into the rubber some more. I haven't ridden stuff like the Schwalbe Ice Spikers, which are much more aggressive. I have had a friend tell me that on pavement, the studs are hitting so much that you do need to be careful if there's not snow, if it's just a little wet, that the studs could slip. But again, it's not about speed or distance or ride quality for me in the winter. It's about getting out the door and still riding, sometimes taking pictures, sometimes being able to commute and not get in my car. Sometimes I feel safer in the snow on my bike than in the car. As I've gotten older, just really don't like driving when the snow is piling up anymore. So a comment I often get on the channel is people appreciate that I don't pretend like everything about cycling is always great or life or anything in general. And so I was going on my group ride last week. I got out, I got to the bike shop, not a big deal. We decided we were gonna ride the path and bring studded tire bikes. And we got out onto the path and it was a paved path at first. And what had happened, which is something that happens here a lot, is it gets a little warmer during the day and then it cools off at night, or it gets warmer over a couple days and then refreezes. And what happens is footprints and bike tracks get frozen into the path and become pretty much like ice. And we were out, we hit the path, we were maybe 4 or 5 miles in, and I'm falling behind. I'm trying to watch my line. Also, I'm on 26-inch wheels. Everybody else was on either 650 or even 700 with some plus size tires. And I just kept feeling that worst feeling in the world if you've ever crossed your bike over a slight curb and the tire catches, that sense where you feel like you're gonna go down. It was pretty much that nonstop, but add the fact that it's icy. And again, the studs are doing their job of giving me some traction on that, but it just was really uncomfortable. And we got to where there's gonna be a long boardwalk, which of course holds the snow and the ice even worse. And I just decided, you know what? I'm not having fun. I don't wanna fall down and break my wrist or my collarbone like towards the beginning of the winter and not get a ride at all. I'm like, this is not worth it. I'm not enjoying myself. And one of my big things is still getting out and being social on my bike in the winter. And this was one of those nights where it's like, hey, this ain't working for me. And I got off the bike. I texted my friends. I'm like, hey, I'm turning around. I'm just not feeling comfortable tonight. And I went back. It's one of those nights where definitely bigger tires, a fat bike would have been the bike of choice. I've gone on Yeti rides last year, which are the Sunday morning Dirty River rides, where me and Aaron were both riding our 26-inch wheel studded tire bikes. We both have the same tires on them. I think those are 2.0 or 2.1s. We had so much snow last winter and stuck around where everybody on fat bikes was able to pretty much ride really well. And we were just playing a balancing act the whole time. We were still having fun. It's a chill social ride. It was still worth getting out, but there are conditions where the fat tire bikes or the plus tire bikes are really going to make a difference in being able to roll over stuff that, you know, a narrow or 26-inch wheel is not going to do, no matter the studs or not. So again, just conditions, 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 conditions. And everyone needs to do what's right for them, because I've heard from tons of friends, well, some friends who are not just like internet haters, you know, people I genuinely like, who are like, I used to live in the, you know, Northeast and I never messed with studded tires. I was always fine. Awesome. I watch people ride fixed gear bikes through New York City in the snow all the time on skinny tires and they do fine. That's great for them. I'm not against it. live your truth. If it works for you, it works for you. You know, Lucas Brunel makes those videos. I've watched of him bombing through Boston in a snowstorm on a typical road bike, and his attitude is the skinny tires are cutting through the snow. Then he goes and rides his bike out on the Charles River. I can't deny that. I've watched the video. I like the studs for the peace of mind for what I do. So as mentioned, the other thing people always ask about is pogies or bar mitts. Mine are bar mitts, that's the brand, and they're pretty substantial neoprene ones. I've used some drop bar ones, and then I've also used some 45 North ones that attach to flat bars. So I've tried a couple different ones. All mine are the more substantial ones though that are made for true winter riding. I've seen Pathless Pedal always shows those like thinner ones that are more for like shoulder season type bar mitts, and they're a little more flexible, a little less permanent. Edmund, do you have to rub on my tripod? It makes the shot look bad. But that's what I have, and that's what my experience is with. Again, this is something where I just feel like people talk about, like, if you have bar mitts, your hands will never be cold. I just don't find that to always be the truth. Basically, what I have found is that when I'm leaving my house, so my bikes obviously get to live indoors, which is really nice, that they're great because the bars are warm, the air inside the bar mitts is warm. They'll almost be too warm down to the low 30s, in my opinion. But if it's colder than that, or if I'm just getting started, what I do is I use some wool defeat gloves, and I wear those underneath, and then if I get too warm, I take them off and I just stuff them in the front of the bar mitts. It's nice because that also takes up some of the air that needs to be kept warm as you're out there longer. And the way mine are with the big sweep bars, they close up pretty good, but there still is a couple tiny little gaps in the zipper, so you could feel a little bit of wind when your hands are completely bare in there. To me, the hugest benefit of using pogies or bar mitts is, one, I'm someone who makes videos, so to be able to use my GoPro and manage it without having heavier gloves on is really, really nice. Also, like I said, I had to text my friends the other night when I broke off of the ride, and so being able to get your phone out of your pocket or wherever you have it, your bag, either just some thin wool gloves or thin gloves on, or just your bare hands, depending on the situation, is a huge benefit. Unzipping your jacket, as I always find, like especially riding in the snow, you're putting in so much effort, you get warm so much faster. Those little things are what I really love about them. Some people have talked about being worried about having your hand in that kind of thing, and if you need to fall down, it's almost like the whole clipless pedal thing, but you get used to it so fast, and I mean, those openings are pretty big. I have never worried about like the claustrophobic feeling of having your hands in bar mitts some people talk about. I think it's something you'd get used to really fast, but again, everyone's different. So the biggest negative to me about bar mitts is that I'm someone who rides where I like to go, and often my bike will be sitting outside for a while. So me and my friends, we ride to a brewery, we go get dinner, maybe it's 20 degrees outside at night, so we have one more beer to kind of stall getting back out there. Well, your bike then, when you come back to it, obviously all that air in the bar mitts is cold, the bars are now cold, so when you get back on your bike, you know, they're just radiating cold in your hands, so you do need to wear some kind of liner gloves as you're starting out. The problem then is the gloves that are keeping the heat from escaping your hands is also keeping that heat from warming up the area in there. And then I find like, man, wouldn't I just be better off with the warmer lobster gloves that I could have had in the bar or restaurant with me. So when it comes to just overall warmth of bar mitts leaving my house, I had found that they felt about the same to me as these were my winter gloves that I used for years. They're finally getting long in the tooth, and I replaced them last year. Sugoi, I guess it would be. These are their waterproof lobster gloves. Used these for years, they were great. They're a little bigger too, so when I really needed to keep stuff warm, just like with the bar mitts, I would put some wool gloves underneath them. So they were really good gloves, and I found, in my opinion, the bar mitts weren't any warmer than this. They were all just offering a different experience. So over and over again, I hear in the comments that how much warmer bar mitts are. That just hasn't been my experience. But anyways, what I do when I don't ride the bike with the bar mitts is I bought these last year. These are seal skins, and I believe this model is called the Barwick. These are pricey. These were $110, but these are the most amazing gloves I've ever worn. I don't know if I've ever needed to put anything underneath them, maybe once or twice in the super cold stuff have I. But the thing that's even more amazing is their profile is so much lower than these were. So they're much smaller, so I do feel like I have a little more dexterity in them. They're still lobster gloves, so they're not going to be like, you know, just being in something where you could use all your fingers, but I could still shift, I could still brake, I feel comfortable. They're waterproof, they must be really windproof. When I was out, I might have been on that last commuting trip, but I remember on my way home, like at first, when I got outside, my hands felt cold and I could literally feel them warming up in here. In my mind, I likened it to when you throw a down jacket on and you just instantly feel the heat building back up. These are highly recommended. There's tons of gloves out there. There's tons of warm gloves. And then I know everybody has their hacks, whether it's plastic or foil or whatever. I'm to the point where to make winter riding enjoyable, I don't mind spending the money. And I bet that these were gonna last me 10 years or whatever, you know, so it'll be worth it. And I think I might have forgot to bring that up about the studded tires, so I'll throw that in now. But I've ridden over 1,600 miles on those and they still look almost like new. The only thing I've had to do is replace some studs. And most of that is probably because we ride on some really stupid stuff like train gravel and well, you've seen my videos. So again, with winter riding and gloves, it's just like the tires. Everyone has to do what works for them. One of the other things I do is I have an older set of Defeat wool gloves that I will just layer with these. This gets me pretty much into the low 30s, and then I would switch to the lobster gloves, or I'm riding the bike with the bar mitts, you know, that's what I do. But love these. I have the full, these are like a synthetic blend, the red ones, and the gray ones I'm wearing underneath are the full wool ones. One of the reasons I switched the synthetic blend is I think they last a little longer. I have worn out one pair of those Defeat winter gloves, but again, they're being worn from fall through spring, and I got a number of seasons out of them, so I think they're totally worth it. A couple other things, whenever I'm down here, people ask about all the bikes, have a full video about that. At the top of my channel page, use the search bar if you want to know about that. I've made a bunch of winter riding gear videos, tips and tricks. So if you want to talk about feet, if you want to talk about jackets, if you want to talk about layering, I have done that. I was doing this video to be a little more specific, something I could share, because every winter riding video I make for the rest of the winter, I'll get at least one comment asking about the bar mitts and at least one asking about the studded tires. So here's all that information that I know in one spot. I did put some new stickers up in the store. This one honors one of my favorite punk bands from high school, 15, their song Helter Smelter. Check that out on YouTube if you want to, but a line from their song about riding bikes instead of driving cars. So I thought that was cool. It's an idea that's been in the back of my head for a long, long time. I did put up another round of Edmund stickers. I put it in a YouTube post, and by the time this video comes out later today, I think they're already gonna be sold out. So this time, my next order, I ordered 2 rounds so that as they sell out, I could have more. I'm still learning how to manage inventory, and this is not what I do for a living. So same thing, there are new industrial gravel shirts. People ask about those all the time. I had Micah screen print another run of those, and I have them available in every size right now, but I think I'm getting better at learning what sizes people buy. One of the things too, people ask, like, why not just always have them? I don't have unlimited funds. This isn't like a business that just keeps, you know, rolling over inventory. And I find when I promote them, they sell for a while. Then when I stop, they sit for a while. It's just, I just can't be sitting on thousands of dollars of t-shirt and sticker inventory. So I do my best. These ones are not limited. I'll keep printing them as they run out, like with most of the stuff. I just think it's fun to do the Edmund ones as a limited run and then change them every 100. And yeah, that's just the way. That's some random thing I decided to do. So people seem to enjoy it. They're buying them. So yeah, thanks as always for watching. Thanks for all your support. Let me know down below your winter riding strategies. I'm always interested to see what people have to say. But as always, be cool. What works for you may not work for other people. I always say it's just like bike packing. You know, everybody has the way they want to do it, and you know, be kind to each other. All right, I will see you in the next video. Peace.